When Monique Richardson's son returned home from school recently, he told her about comments made by his social studies teacher. Comments she and her son found disturbing.
That whites are more superior than blacks, and because of the color of our skin, we'll never make the amount of money that other races make.
Despite many parents telling 41 Action News the name of the teacher, tonight we are withholding the name pending confirmation from the school district. Days after the 6th grade students heard the comments in class, they continue to bother Richardson.
To teach our children that another race is more superior is basically you're telling our children that they should just give up.
Several parents approached the school to complain. This father we spoke to in the parking lot said his 2 children say they felt like they were targeted in his class because of their skin color.
You don't need to say something or shut up, those kind of things. He make the kids feel like they was not treated fairly.
Upon hearing of the teacher's suspension, Chitama says his children told their dad they knew something like this would happen.
My son was like, "Dad, I told you. I keep telling you about this guy."
For now, that teacher is suspended with pay, but parents like Monique Richardson hope the district ultimately fires the teacher for the comments.
They shouldn't feel uncomfortable and feel like they have to walk on eggshells because of what a teacher feels about them or thinks about them.
You see, many times I have told a lot of you that your first experience with white supremacy is not going to be with the police. It's going to be somewhere in a classroom setting, because that's where you're going to deal with it the most, because you're going to be there the most at that young age, whether you're going to preschool or where you're going up to your regular classes of elementary, junior high, and high school. Now, unfortunately, the white supremacist wants to be teaching our children. And our children need to know enough about themselves, our history, and everything about this white supremacist society that we got to know how to respond to that. You know, we got to stop acting like our kids can't be told the world they're going to live in, because as a parent, I make sure to tell my children the world they're going to live in. I don't sugarcoat nothing to them, no matter what it is. And if it was my children, they would definitely have a response to that. But let's speak on that. He says that whites are superior. How? Please tell me how. Because I haven't found one thing genetically. I haven't found one thing, on a level of intellect. I haven't found anything psychological. I haven't found anything physical or nothing that I could point to say, you know what? You're right. They are superior. He says that whites are superior. How? Please tell me how. Because I haven't found one thing genetically. I haven't found one thing genetically. I haven't found one thing, on a level of intellect. I haven't found one thing, on a level of intellect.
This is Benjamin Banneker. I think he's the most brilliant scientist in American history. This is Benjamin Banneker. I think he's the most brilliant scientist in American history. This guy, unbelievable what he did. He's the guy
more so than Franklin?
I would put Franklin and Banneker almost equal. Now, Franklin did a lot of inventions. This guy one time took a pocket watch. He taught himself how to read. He taught himself science. He wrote an almanac that 10 years ahead he was able to predict to the minute solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, 10 years before they happened. I mean, by watching the motion through a telescope, unbelievable what the guy did. He once took the back off a pocket watch, saw how it worked, went home and carved a wooden clock with all the gears, mainspring, and it was accurate to within 1 minute a year. A wooden clock the guy did. Cow. He's the guy who laid out Washington, D.C. He's the surveyor who did all that. He's a brilliant mathematician. Jefferson gave him...
Never knew this.
No. Jefferson gave him his example to France, said, hey, you guys in France think that blacks are inferior. Jefferson gave him his example to France, said, hey, you guys in France think that blacks are inferior. Here's Benjamin Banneker.
The entire layout where the White House is at and all that, it was a Negro that designed all of that. I believe it was Benjamin Banneker. He's also the same man that invented the almanac, which they use. It's called the almanac, and they use that to predict what the weather's going to be the next year. Then how they're going to plant the crops for the next year. It goes back to the almanac, which goes back to Benjamin Banneker. The way that DC is set up, he set all that up. You go into the history of it, and then the blueprints was lost, so then they built everything from his memory. Because the blueprints were lost. So then they built it off of his memory with him right there on the project. Built it right to spec from his memory.
I haven't found one thing, on a level of intellect.
Puritanism and American culture from Plymouth Rock all the way through the 19th century first, okay, which was unbelievably repressive, okay, and everyone agrees on this, right? It was like comically repressive.
Right.
This first Surgeon General of the United States, Benjamin Rush, wrote these books about how masturbation caused blindness and death and epilepsy. There were just like medical journals were full of this shit about how sex was terrible and would kill you and cause paralysis and all this stuff. One of the fastest growing industries in the early 19th century, right after the United States is founded, was for devices to stop people from masturbating. So like chainmail mitts for men and these hobbles that kept women's legs together. Whoa. That had a lock and key, and then chastity belts. Everybody knows about that. All these it was just this amazingly like comically repressive culture around sex, and then also around work. So the Puritan work ethic, that work is good no matter what you get for it, and you're doing the devil's work if you're not working, was in like 5-year-old children's textbooks. Kindergartners were taught that playing with their toys was the devil's work, and they were taught to be useful in their lives and to find a profession and a vocation when they're in kindergarten, right? And it just suffused the whole society. So like every political leader, every business leader, and certainly all the religious leaders, everybody, and novels that were written, poetry, it's just all about work all the time to be godly and never have sex, even in marriage. There was even a lot of talk through the 19th century about even having sex with your wife was dangerous at best. Like you did it because you had to procreate to make more Americans, but that was it. Like you got to be really careful. You can't let it get out of hand beyond that. You got to just, so this is, and historians all agree on this. It was just a phenomenal, so this is Victorianism, right? This is like when Puritanism moves into Victorianism, right? And then along come these people from this other place called West Africa, where none of these ideas existed. Like the Protestant work ethic was like, what are you talking about? That's a purely Northern European and American invention. Very few people in world history have subscribed to that idea. So West Africans come over here. They also believed in moving your body as a good thing. It was a beautiful thing to them, moving it in sensual ways, dancing and otherwise. They didn't believe that sex outside of marriage was wicked. It was going to destroy your life, especially for women. They thought that women who had sex outside of marriage were fine, that it was no problem. They come over here, and then, as slaves, they have zero, of course, incentive to internalize, to adopt this white person's culture, right? Not only that, they're sort of physically barred from it, right? So citizenship, they're not given citizenship, right? And that's not good, because you don't get to vote, and you don't get equal protection under the law, and all those good things that come with citizenship. What people miss about it is that in here and everywhere, citizenship is also a cultural thing. Right, you're considered a good American if you do particular things, right? And in that case, it meant putting your body in a walking prison, right? That's what a good citizen did, a good white person. So slaves were here. They brought elements of this West African culture that thought that sex was okay and that work was a means to an end, and that was it. And they had no incentive to adopt this insane repressive culture that the white people were all about. And so they developed their own, which wasn't West African and it wasn't American. It was this new thing called which we now call African American culture, and that is what gave us jazz, man. Because what is jazz? Jazz is the music of improvisation. It's the music. It's been called the music of freedom. You take this musical structure, and then the soloist does what he wants for a moment. He goes out of the structure and is free. He's liberated from the structure and then comes back into it. It's the music of improvisation and freedom. I don't think it's a coincidence that people who were separated from that ridiculously repressive culture created that music. White people never could have created that. White people never could have created that, ever.
I haven't found anything psychological. I haven't found anything physical or nothing that I could point to say, you know what? You're right. They are superior. Nothing. I can't find it. You say that blacks are inferior because we won't do as good as other races. Like, you wouldn't even have America where it's at today if it wouldn't been for the black man and black woman of America.
First of all, we built this country, okay? This country would be nothing without the labor and the free labor that it received from black people in this country.
Black people have invented so many things that you even using to this day. And if black people were to call in all their inventions, all their discovery, this country would be a third world country. You can do the research on all the inventions that black people have created. But yeah, you know, black people never get credit for any of that because you have idiots like this. And unfortunately, when you have idiots like this being in positions like that, that is the major problem with this country. You have white supremacists who belong underneath the trailer park somewhere, who went to backwoods university teaching our children, being in government, being police officers, judges, being on city council, mayor, having high paying jobs, don't have no education. Unfortunately, because of the racial hierarchy system that's in this country, they get away with this crap. But more and more every day that they're not being comfortable with what they're doing, they're complaining constantly that they're getting called out. They hate that black people could say what they want, supposedly, and nothing happens to them. But if they do it, something happens. Well, how many years that you've been doing that? You've been killing with impunity. You still are killing with impunity, and nothing happens to you. So miss me with that little complaint that you're doing, that you can't act like the savage that you are, running amok around the country and all over the world. But this individual don't need to be teaching anybody's children. And you wonder why it's constant hatred. You wonder why it's constant division, because you have demons like this spreading that mess in the classroom. Let me know what you think in the comment section about this devil and what he is doing, because yes, he is a straight up devil for what he is trying to impose on other people.